Hey there, and welcome. So think about the last time you argued with someone about what's fair. Maybe it was over who gets the last slice of cake or who should do the dishes. We've all been there, right? Well, it turns out you were bumping up against a massive question that philosophers have been wrestling with for literally centuries. Today, we're going to unpack some of their brilliant and sometimes really conflicting answers. So let's dive in. Let's start with something we can all wrap our heads around: a pizza. Imagine you've got one pizza and a group of friends. What's the fairest way to slice it up? Should everyone get a piece of the exact same size, no matter what? What if one person is starving and another just ate? What if one person paid for the whole thing? You see how this simple question gets complicated fast? And this, right here, is the core problem of a huge field of philosophy. Now, the fancy term for all this is distributive justice, but don't let the name intimidate you. All it really means is coming up with rules for how to hand out stuff, and that stuff could be anything from pizza to money to opportunities to healthcare. The key is it's for stuff that's in limited supply. There isn't enough for everyone to have as much as they want. That's the puzzle. So let's walk through some of the biggest ideas for how to solve it.
Okay, so back to our pizza. What's the first solution that pops into your head? For most of us, it's pretty simple. Just make it equal for everybody. That very powerful, intuitive idea has a name: the strict equality principle. The more formal name is strict egalitarianism, and the rule couldn't be clearer. Every single person gets the exact same amount. In our pizza world, that means everyone gets an identical slice. No more, no less. It doesn't matter who you are or how hungry you are. It's clean, it's simple, and on some gut level, it feels really fair. And you can totally see the appeal, right? It's rooted in this powerful idea of giving every single person equal respect. But here's the catch: a really weird paradox. Imagine instead of pizza, we're handing out apples and oranges. Everyone gets one of each. Perfect equality. But what if you love apples and hate oranges, and your friend is the exact opposite? Under strict equality, you're both stuck with something you don't want. But if you were allowed to trade, if we allowed a little inequality, you could both end up way happier. And that's the kicker: forcing perfect sameness can actually make everyone worse off. And that leads us to this really fascinating, kind of mind-bending question. What if allowing for some differences, some inequality, could actually improve life for everybody? Not just the people at the top, but even the people at the very bottom. This one thought right here, it opens the door to a completely different way of looking at the problem. And that exact question leads us to one of the most important philosophical theories of the last century. It comes from a thinker named John Rawls, and his big idea is called the difference principle. The whole thing is designed around one goal: helping the least advantaged people in society. So Rawls breaks it down into two main parts. First, he says you have to guarantee the most basic freedoms for absolutely everyone: freedom of speech, religion, all that stuff. He says that's step one, and it's totally non-negotiable. Then, and only after you've secured those liberties, can you start talking about money and wealth. And his rule for that is pretty radical. Social and economic inequalities are only okay if they are set up to provide the greatest possible benefit to the people at the very bottom. This is the phrase to remember. For Rawls, it's not about how big the gap is between the rich and the poor. That's not the main concern. The question he asks is, how is the person at the very bottom doing? For example, is a doctor getting a really high salary justified? Rawls would say yes, if that high salary encourages people to become great doctors, which leads to better healthcare for the poorest person in society. If it doesn't help that person at the bottom, then the inequality isn't justified. The whole system has to be geared to pull up the floor. The moral power here is pretty clear. It creates this fundamental social safety net. It makes the most vulnerable people our top priority. The problem, of course, comes when you try to apply it to the real world. How much inequality do you actually need to motivate people in a way that helps the least advantaged? And how big of a gap are we as a society willing to accept? That is where the debate still rages. Okay, so we've looked at strict equality, and we've looked at helping the least advantaged. But what if we're asking the wrong question entirely? What if the ultimate goal isn't equality or even fairness, but just making people happy? This brings us to a whole new set of ideas called welfare-based principles, and the most famous one by far is utilitarianism. The idea is actually very straightforward. We should just pick the system of distribution that creates the most total good, the most total happiness or welfare for the greatest number of people. You just add up all the good, subtract all the bad, and go with whatever option gives you the highest score. And the appeal is obvious, right? It's practical. It focuses on what seems to matter most: people actually being well and happy. But the peril here can be, well, pretty chilling.
If your only goal is to maximize the total amount of good, what's to stop you from sacrificing one person's happiness or even their life for the benefit of a larger group? Utilitarianism has a really hard time protecting the rights of individuals and minorities. It tends to see society as one big thing, where it's okay for some parts to suffer as long as the whole is better off. But critics say, wait a minute, society is made of individual people, and you can't just sacrifice one for another. So that focus on the rights of the individual brings us to our last major set of principles. These theories shift the focus away from looking at the final pattern of who has what, and instead they look at the actions of individuals. They ask a different question. What do people actually deserve? This is where we get into desert-space theories. Desert as in getting what you're due. The idea is that people should get what they deserve. But that immediately raises another huge question. What's the basis for deserving something? Is it about your contribution? The person who creates the most value gets the most back? Or is it about effort? Maybe the person who works the hardest deserves the most, even if their work wasn't as successful. Or maybe it's about compensation, rewarding people for the costs and sacrifices they make for their jobs. Now, this focus on the individual actually splits into two very different paths. The desert-based view still cares about what the final picture looks like. They want a society where the pattern of distribution is fair, where people have what they deserve. But then you have the libertarian view, which says the final pattern doesn't matter at all. For libertarians, the only thing that counts is that the process was just. Was everything acquired fairly? Was every trade and transaction voluntary? If so, then whatever the outcome is, no matter how unequal it might look, it's just. The end result is irrelevant. So we have all these competing theories: strict equality, helping the least advantaged, maximizing happiness, what people deserve, but almost all of them were designed to work within a single country, a single society. So what happens when we zoom out and look at the entire planet?
This is the huge, complicated problem of global justice. See, within a country, there's a government that can, in theory, tax people and redistribute wealth to try and make things fairer. But internationally, there is no world government. There's no global tax authority. There's basically no one in charge of dividing up the global pizza.
And the stakes are incredibly high. This isn't just a philosophical thought experiment. The data shows a pretty stark reality. We have massive inequalities between nations, and in many cases, we see a diminishing share of global income going to the world's absolute poorest people. This is a real-world situation for billions. So, we're left with the ultimate question. We're applying our simple pizza problem to the entire world. Which principles should guide us? Should we be aiming for strict equality between nations? Should the actions of richer countries be judged only by how much they benefit the least advantaged nations? Or do we just say that whatever happens through voluntary exchange between countries is fair no matter the result? There is no easy answer, but figuring it out is, without a doubt, one of the defining challenges of our time.